Can we trust what the beings say? This is a fundamental problem if we're going to have an interaction with the greater cosmos, right? Can we trust what the beings say? Well, Whitley Strieber, who has an intimate connection to these guys and has had regular interactions with these guys for decades, such an intimate reaction that he refers to it as a communion in his first book, he says, no, we can't necessarily trust these guys. So let's listen to what Whitley has to say and talk about it, because this is important. Get in here, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about aliens and UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, I love Whitley. I've read several of his books. He has some really fascinating insight into the phenomenon. And like I say, he has been dealing with this for a long time, and he's had some incredible experiences that have been corroborated by other people, including out-of-body experiences and so on. And I really value what he has to say, even though it gets pretty trippy. You know, he wrote a book with his wife, his late wife, who had passed on at the time that they wrote the book together, but he was receiving communications from her through his implant, according to Whitley, and they wrote this book together. It is a brilliant book. I encourage everybody to go out and read it. I think it's called A New World or something like that. So anyway, I really love Whitley, and I completely agree that the honesty of the beings can be called into question, which is very frustrating. Life would be so much easier as a ufologist as if we could A, trust the government, and B, trust the beings. But alas, such is not the case. But let's see what Whitley has to say. Here goes.
People who have gotten a long 2-day briefing. I believe Jim Semivan has mentioned that he got that briefing that goes through the whole history of this insofar as it is still remembered. And my guess is that a lot of that information is in the briefing. And, you know, it worries me. It worries me because there's a lot of lying going on in this, and it's not all from us. The visitors, or whatever they are, do not necessarily tell the truth. But there's a tendency to assume that whatever they say must be true. And this business of Jimmy Carter allegedly being told that they created our religions and modified, created us genetically, and it upset him so terribly. They don't necessarily tell the truth. And, you know, we can't just believe them simply because it's them at all, not at all. And that worries me that these briefings have been created by people who are not close to them and do not know how they are. And therefore, they would believe what they were told. You know, General Nathan Twining's son said after General Twining had died that he had encountered the living one that was brought from Roswell to Wright Field. Now, General Exton told me that there were bodies. He never mentioned a living one. I have to say that. But the thing that was so telling about this thing that Twining's son says is that it said to Twining telepathically, we have no interest in humanity. In other words, it lied.
It
lied. That is absolutely false.
That was their main interest.
Indeed, that's absolutely correct. That the beings are here for us, or at least that is a major part of the reason that they are here. According to the Roper poll that was done in the 90s by Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and John Mack, it discovered that over 2% of the world population were alien abductees or contactees. Now, David Jacobs has since refined that number. He says they actually had to discount a lot of positive responses because they didn't want to alarm people, so they would just arbitrarily whittle that number down to 2%. But the original number was closer to 5%. That's 5% of the world population that are contactees or abductees of the beings. That's tens of millions of people, right? And this is ongoing. These guys get regularly abducted. I mean, this is not a one-time thing. There are one-time experiencers like Travis Walton, but typically this is an ongoing thing, even a lifelong thing, and a generational thing. If you're an abductee or contactee, it's likely that one of your parents will have been too, and one of theirs as well, if not more than one. Sometimes there are more than one. Sometimes the beings seem to bring people together. So there are cases of that. So what that seems to imply, or very directly say, is that there's a massive, overwhelming involvement of the beings interacting with humanity, and they are doing something. They are tweaking people over generations, seemingly creating hybrids. Who knows what all they're doing? We don't know. They wipe people's minds for a reason because they don't want us to know. And, that's a big problem, right? We want to have a relationship with the phenomenon. I mean, it's here. It's not going away. So we need to have a healthy, positive relationship with it. But this really depends on trust. They need to be able to trust us, of course, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that they can trust us and that our interactions with them are positive and honest. But it works both ways. We need to be able to trust them, and it doesn't seem like we can, which is very frustrating. There have been so many stories that they have told people over the years. The origins of humanity. They often claim credit for creating humanity. Unfortunately, they tell that story in different ways, and they have like 6 or 7 different main narratives that they've put out, telling people how they have created humanity, but in very, very radically different ways. So those stories there's no way they could all be right. And if they're all just trying to advance the same basic concept that they created us, and those are the stories they are, putting out there to illustrate this, then that calls that whole idea into question. If those stories are BS, or 6 out of 7 of them are BS, can that last one be the real answer? I don't think so. I don't buy that story. I mean, if it was just one consistent story over time, that would make it more believable. But they can't even get their lives straight. So, and in part, that's because they don't feel like they need to. They wipe people's minds. These are, this information is largely coming from hypnotic regression when people's memories are being recovered. And sometimes, even then, there will be places that they cannot recover, which is interesting. And it seems to indicate a deeper level of mind wiping than just the basic mind wiping. And we know very little of what they're doing other than the hybridization project, which seems to be a very large project. And, there are fairly consistent reports of them teaching people metaphysical things, how to read auras, how to, heal, stuff like that. So that seems to be fairly consistent and seems to be a real thing. But it can also be scary as well. And often it will progress from a scary experience to a positive experience. And there are numerous accounts of aliens healing people and doing positive things. I really don't want to be a fearmonger or push a negative alien or being, agenda or narrative. I really don't. I want us to have a positive, friendly relationship with the phenomenon, but I would encourage the phenomenon to be truthful and honest with us so that we can advance our relationship with the phenomenon. Other whoppers they've put out are, who they are and what their purpose is. The Greys have given several different versions of why they are here and who they are. They have told people that they are they are humans from the future. They have told people they are humans from the future from an alternate timeline. There have been other beings that claim to have been from the past, and they're survivors of some ancient culture. And there have been various other narratives as well. They are a race that became too enamored of, technology and making themselves, hybrids of technology, if you will, and, losing their, humanity. And that's why they have come here to splice themselves together with us to rediscover their authentic self, because we are somehow related distantly. Could be true, could not be true. The problem is we can't trust them. And what's interesting is that the general thrust of those various narratives, when they're explaining their origin stories, if you will, are that they are weak and that they need us. So they tell people that in different ways with these different stories. They are a weak, dying race and they need us. That seems to me designed to make us feel better. We have nothing to fear from them. They're weak, they're dying, and they need us. We're important to them, so they won't harm us. That seems to be the general idea. That seems to be, in my mind, the reason for these various narratives that are false, because they can't all be true. But so those are some of the stories the beings have put out there, right? That they have created humanity and how they came to be and who they are. But although the general thrust of the narratives are the same, they created us and they're weak and they're dying, their particulars are wildly different and cannot coexist. So, what's the deal, right? Those stories are not true. Let's say that one of them could possibly be true and 6 out of the 7 are not true. But that throws the 7th into question as well, doesn't it? So it's very likely those stories are all fake. So I would encourage you, phenomenon, if you're listening and if you are an experiencer yourself or you engage in C5 and deal with these guys, to encourage the phenomenon to be open and honest with us so that we can advance our relationship with the phenomenon in a positive way. So those are my thoughts on this. I love Whitley. I really applaud him for bringing this out, and because he is very positive on the phenomenon generally, but he's a realist and will call them out when they are BSing. And I really admire that and appreciate that. And so I just wanted to make this video to bring that, out there in the public awareness as much as I can. And, get out the idea that we might want to encourage the phenomenon to be as honest with us as possible. And also, until that happens, not to take everything they say at face value. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please hit a big like. I would really appreciate it if you enjoyed or got something out of this video. Please smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. Check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Roads, signing out.